Back on ABC24 this week, talking about the Memphis mayor's race. Now, for the next 7 weeks now, we're going to profile the top candidates based on how they're polling and also how much money they've raised. And so we're starting our series here at ABC24 with former Mayor Willie Herenton, who's 83. He'd be 87 if he wins at the end of his term. And here's the report by our Azaria Oates.
First up is Willie Herenton, a lifelong Memphian who served 5 consecutive terms as Memphis's first black mayor.
I have a track record.
We covered the big topics, touching on public safety, poverty, economic development, and crime.
We're going to implement some intervention, prevention, and some restorative justice programs. And the major thing I'd like to accomplish is forging ahead with a partnership with the Memphis Shelby County schools.
He says crime prevention is crucial because it's the pipeline to help business grows in every corner of Memphis.
It's very difficult to recruit companies to a crime-ridden city. Poverty certainly is an issue here, so it's just a whole array of urban issues that we need to attack.
Herenton also talked about the economic impact he says he already brought to the 901.
In 1991, when I became the mayor, downtown Memphis was desolate, barren. We didn't have any Fortune 500 companies located in Memphis.
He also addressed there were some shortfalls when he served as mayor.
We should have a metropolitan form of government. That was a missed opportunity for Memphis, and it was on my watch. We missed getting an NFL. Nashville got that.
And at the age of 83, with hundreds of supporters, he wants another chance at Memphis politics.
I don't know, Deidre Malone. I think he's still got it. First of all, I want to look as spry as he does at 83.
He looks good.
He looks good. Yeah.
And I think he does still have it. And I think that there are people out in the community that still have a lot of respect for Mayor Herenton, and I think a lot of people are going to come out and vote for him. Age, for some people, is just a number. Mm-hmm. And so he has that experience. How many terms was it? 5?
5.
5 terms. Mm-hmm. And he wants to come back and get it right a second time. So, you know, I think he's competition.
Yeah, I was at a town hall meeting with Raleigh, and one of the voters said he just needs to sit down. So there's that side too. There's that side too. But I think people remember, you know, he did bring the Grizzlies here. He did kind of help in the renaissance of downtown.
And downtown is fabulous.
Yeah,
under his leadership. Public housing.
Sam, I know you've talked to him too recently. What are your impressions of him as an outsider who wasn't here when he was mayor of Memphis, and how did he just strike you?
The first thing you see with Willie Herenton is how talented of a politician he is, right? I mean, what arguably on your hand, he's definitely on the first hand of most talented politicians in the city of Memphis history. I mean, he's still got this presence about him. You see hundreds of people packing a building in South Memphis on a Saturday for him at 83. You saw it in 2019. In 2019, he got 28% of the vote. My question is, how many people that voted for him are still alive? I'm not, like, that's not a joke. Like, that's, like, a serious question. And then, is he going to raise any money? And he was facing a popular incumbent at that time. Can he expand that ceiling at all? Deidre, I mean, I'd ask you, is that possible? Is 28% plus possible?
I think it's possible, especially with the number of people that we have in this race. A lot of them are no names. And I remember when he ran that time with Shep Wilburn and people were trying to decide 1999 whether or not they were going to vote for Mayor Herenton again or try somebody else, and they went with the safest choice.
They did,
and that might be what happens this time.
You literally wrote the book.
I wrote the book on
this guy, and a good book too, I might add.
Yeah, thank you.
But I think about. You know, how he started is when he first was elected into office, and the business community was behind him, and he had a majority white support, I believe, and that diminished as time went on, and I think he would even say he was probably getting tired of the job. In fact, he didn't finish the term and handed the reins over to A.C. Wharton. Right. How do you assess his chances, especially, doesn't he have to start showing up at some of these forums? And I mean, he's doing the interviews, but he hasn't raised hardly any money. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, he's a formidable candidate, and Sam is absolutely right. He is probably the most savviest politician that we've had in this city, maybe with the exception of Harold Ford Sr., that we've had since Boss Crumb. And so you have to give him credit for that. I still say the question is going to be, do people want to go back to that era? He did some great things. The downtown was desolate. So people, enough voters will have to decide if they want to go back to that. There are some other choices here. There are some, I think there are 6 major candidates who have a chance to win in this election. Only 6. And we'll see what happens. I think Frank Colvett getting out helps. It helps the sheriff, Floyd Bonner. I think it helps Herenton to a smaller degree, but I think it helps Floyd Bonner the most. And because now we don't have the specter of race involved.
Right. City Councilman Frank Colvett is who you're talking about. Did step down just before the deadline to do so. And I was interested in his quote. He said, "The problems in Memphis are far too big for us to walk in silos. There are too many candidates and too many distractions at a time when we should all be working together," says the only white candidate who's in the race. Shea Flynn stepped down too, but he was barely in, so he doesn't really count. Or not Shea Flynn, that's George Flynn, his dad. So what are your thoughts about that too?
Well, I mean, I think it's hugely significant because there were a lot of concerns that he could squeeze through. He was raising money. People know who he is, and when you have so many other candidates dividing the pie, there was some concern there. Now that concern is gone. Now we'll have to see who else, if it's Herenton, if it's Bonner, if it's Young, if it's McKissick, if it's Turner, if it's Gibson. Yeah. Those are the ones.
I've had 3 sources tell me that we're about to see a huge drop of PAC money into the Paul Young campaign to the tune of $500,000. If he doubles what he basically has now and gets to that kind of a bank account, how does that shake up the race?
I think it makes him even more competitive, but I still think it's Floyd Bonner's race to lose. He was just named Sheriff of the Year here in Tennessee.
And let's not forget the police and fire endorsement.
And I think you'll see more endorsements for Sheriff Bonner. But I do think that it would help if he gets that PAC money in, because his ID will raise, his name ID will raise. But I think it's going to be tough to beat Floyd, I think.
Yeah. How, in the forums I've seen Paul Young so far, I'm impressed. I mean, because I haven't really seen a lot of interviews with him or whatever, but he seems like he's got that part down. And I hate to say that there's a telegenic part to it, a performance side of it, but there is.
Yeah, and I think that that's a night and day from what you saw last October when he was one of the first guys to launch. And he was very stilted. He was very wonky because he is a wonky guy who understands the processes of government. Right. But he's also out there grinding. Like that team does have a door-knocking campaign already. Van Turner's already knocking doors. Like those 2 campaigns are very organized. And if Paul Young gets more and more resources, that means he can go up early, he can stay up longer. And he's going to need that because he has to buy more name ID than anybody else.
Yeah. And if young people show up and vote, there's no indication that they will do that in great numbers. But if they do, Paul Young has a chance, Van Turner has a chance. But without them, I don't think they have a chance.
You know what? I'd like to say one thing about Paul Young that I really do have a great deal of respect for. I can see him as the type of mayor that gets the work done. It's not about the news conference for him. It's about putting his head down and getting the work done. That's Paul Young.
And let me ask you this, Deidre. Are there people that maybe are Herenton voters today that maybe look to Van Turner or Paul Young and say, I want to look forward, not backward?
Absolutely, there are voters. But there are people like in my age group that are looking at seeing what Mayor Herenton did when he was in office. And I'm going to give you an example. I was working Juneteenth, and there was a young man, he probably was around 50. And I said, you interested in working for so-and-so? He was like, no, I work for MLG&W. I said, well, what do you think about your president? He said, well, when Dr. Herenton is mayor, we'll have a new president for MLG&W. 50 years old. So, but they remember, right?
Right. Interesting. One other thing I want to throw out there, and I'm very short on time, so I may only have time for a yes or no. Justin Pearson is the elephant in the room, I think. I think if he makes an endorsement of any one of those candidates, it could make a game changer in terms of what you're talking about, getting the youth vote out there.
Oh, I agree. I've said that before, and if I were running, I would go get Justin Pearson to be my to endorse me.
He has said he might, so we'll see. Deidre, you're being quiet.
No comment.
Okay.
And I know why.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that during the commercial break.
Exactly.
All right. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.